We've covered a ton of Fallout's greatest mysteries in similar videos of the past. Go watch those after this one. But believe it or not, there are plenty of other questions that the universe has yet to answer. Questions that will likely remain unanswered. Let's get into them. The Vault 13 Skeleton. At the very start of Fallout 1, as the Vault Dweller takes their first steps into the harsh, unforgiving wasteland, they are met with a grim sight. Lying on the ground just outside the entrance to Vault 13 is a human skeleton. This seemingly insignificant detail has puzzled players for decades. Who was this person? And how did they end up meeting their demise so close to the vault's doors? Upon inspecting the scene, the game reveals a small but startling clue. You see Ed. Ed's dead. And that's all the game tells you. Beyond knowing the name, no more information is provided, leaving Ed's full story shrouded in mystery. Instead, players are left to speculate about how Ed met his untimely fate. The close proximity of his remains to Vault 13 suggests that Ed was likely a resident of the vault who, for reasons unknown, ventured into the outside world. Chris Taylor, one of the designers of Fallout, shed some light on this mystery in Fallout Bible 6, stating, Ed was twofold, to immediately show the player that the outside world was dangerous, and to tell the player that he wasn't the first choice of someone to send out. Ed was sent out before the water chip malfunction, however, since he's just bones. This explanation provides a glimpse into Ed's purpose within the game's narrative. He was likely an earlier candidate chosen to explore the outside world, perhaps as a precautionary measure or in response to a different problem altogether. His fate serves as a grim warning to the player about the dangers that lie ahead. However, while this explanation fits within the narrative framework, it raises further questions about the conditions of Vault 13. Why was Ed sent to leave the vault? Was Vault 13 experiencing a different problem? Were they curious about the conditions of the wasteland and Ed was the guinea pig? Or was it something entirely else? We will never know. Furthermore, one of the more perplexing aspects of Ed's remains is their skeletal state. If Ed had been sent out only shortly before the Vault Dweller, his body would not have decomposed to the point of being mere bones. His state of decay suggests that Ed's expedition occurred long before the player's journey, suggesting a timeline where he left the vault, met his demise, and was left undisturbed long enough for his body to decompose. The direction of Ed's skeleton raises further questions about his death. He is facing towards the vault doors, implying that he might have been trying to get back into the shelter prior to perishing. Did Ed succumb to radiation exposure, dehydration, or some other fatal condition soon after leaving the vault? Was it the squeaking rats that did him in? Whatever the case, Ed's story remains one of the many untold tales within the Fallout universe. His skeleton foreshadows the perils that the Vault Dweller is about to face. By placing Ed's remains right outside Vault 13, the game's developers effectively set the tone for the entire series, emphasizing the threat of the wasteland. The mystery of Ed, who he was, why he left the vault, and how he died, becomes less of a question that needs to be answered, and more of a warning to any Vault Dweller that wishes to leave the confines of safety. The Burned Man's Survival. One of the more mysterious characters in Fallout New Vegas is Joshua Graham, or the Burned Man. What was once a rumor throughout the base game of New Vegas, Graham finally made an appearance in the game's second add-on, Honest Hearts. His story is one of survival, making him both a legend and a ghost haunting the wasteland. But to really understand the mystery of the man, you need to know a bit about his past. Joshua Graham was once a high-ranking officer in Caesar's Legion, a brutal and powerful faction that dominated parts of the Mojave Desert. Graham served as Caesar's right-hand man and was known for his ruthless tactics. He helped shape the Legion's army into a fierce fighting force. But after the Legion suffered a crushing defeat at the First Battle of the Hoover Dam, Caesar needed someone to take the blame for the failure. He chose Graham. To make an example out of him, Caesar ordered his former right-hand man to be set on fire and thrown into the Grand Canyon, believing this would be the end of Graham's story. Many would think that this would be it for Graham. After all, nobody should be able to survive being burned alive and then falling into one of the deepest canyons in the world. But, as stories go, this is where the mystery begins. Against all expectations, Joshua Graham survived. Burned beyond recognition, he crawled out of the Grand Canyon and vanished into the wilderness. This miraculous survival has left people wondering, how did he do it? How did Joshua Graham, the burned man, manage to live through something that should have killed him? While he claims that it was because the fire inside burned brighter than the fire around me, this answer is not enough to satisfy most. One possible explanation is sheer luck and resilience. Joshua Graham was known to be tough, both mentally and physically. He was a survivor even before this happened, trained by the Legion to endure pain and hardship. It's possible that his survival instincts kicked in when he was thrown into the canyon. Maybe he found a way to break his fall, using ledges or natural formations in the canyon to slow him down before hitting the bottom. His burns were severe, but he might have been able to find water or shelter to keep him alive long enough to recover. Another theory is that Graham's survival was helped by his deep faith. After he emerged from the canyon, Joshua Graham became a follower of the Mormon faith and believed that God had a purpose for him. Some think that his belief gave him the strength to keep going, even when the pain and injuries should have killed him. Faith and determination can push people to achieve incredible things, and in Graham's case, it might have been what kept him alive. However he did it, Joshua Graham's survival made him a legend. He became a figure that people both feared and respected. He was a ghost who returned from the dead. His story would become widespread in the Mojave and surrounding region, a tale about no matter how hard you try to break someone, some folks just can't be destroyed. Are there any surviving government members? Another intriguing mystery within Fallout is whether any members of the US government survived the Great War. The rapid and widespread destruction caused by the nuclear conflict on October 23, 2077, left the world in ruins, leading many to assume that the US government was entirely annihilated. According to current Fallout lore, this assumption holds true. The US government, as it existed before the war, no longer exists. However, the question of whether any remnants of the government survived remains a topic of speculation. And of course, a central figure in this discussion is the Enclave. The Enclave claims to be the direct continuation of the US government, specifically representing the executive branch. They present themselves as a government in exile, with advanced technology and military might, asserting their authority over the wasteland and seeking to restore the United States to its former glory. Despite their claims, however, the Enclave's legitimacy as the true US government is highly questionable at best. Their ideology and actions often conflict with the ideals and practices of the pre-war government. Instead of functioning as a government seeking to rebuild and govern, the Enclave operates more as a self-serving faction with its own agenda. Their methods, which include ruthless tactics and an elitist view of themselves as the rightful rulers, suggest that they are a less legitimate government and more of a splinter group with ambitions of control. Another theory about the survival of government members would involve Vault Tech, the company responsible for constructing the vaults that are central to the series. We know that Vault Tech had deep connections to the US government and Enclave, and was involved in high-level decision-making and planning. Some speculate that high-ranking government officials might have had access to these vaults or played a role in their creation as part of a last-ditch effort to survive the nuclear devastation. While Vault-Tech's connection to the government is clear, there is little evidence in the games to suggest that any government officials used the vaults to escape the Great War. Of all the known vaults, none acted as a refuge for government leaders. So while Vault-Tech's involvement hints at some level of government planning, it does not provide concrete evidence of surviving government members. And so the survival of the US government remains a mystery. While we do know that several former government members joined the Enclave, the fate of any remaining members remains unknown. Could there be a vault full of cryogenically frozen congressmen? Maybe, but for now it remains as one of Fallout's greatest mysteries. What happened to the rest of the world? Another open-ended mystery in the Fallout universe is the question of what happened to the rest of the world after the Great War. While we know that the United States was decimated by nuclear bombs, turning it into a barren wasteland filled with mutants, raiders, and scattered pockets of survivors, the fate of other countries remains largely unknown. The Fallout series has largely focused on America, leaving players to wonder whether similar wasteland communities have emerged in other parts of the world, or if humanity has managed to rebuild and thrive elsewhere. The Great War, which lasted only a couple of hours, involved a massive exchange of nuclear weapons between the United States and China, the two main superpowers of the time. The sheer scale of the conflict suggests that other nations were either directly involved or caught in the crossfire. This implication points to a widespread devastation, with major cities likely targeted and smaller regions suffering from fallout and other nuclear side effects. Yet, beyond this, the series offers little insight into the condition of the rest of the planet, hence the mystery. There is a possibility that other countries or regions might have fared better than the United States. Perhaps isolated islands, remote rural areas, or smaller, more independent nations managed to escape the worst of the nuclear destruction. It's possible that other societies found ways to adapt, using underground bunkers, shelters similar to Vault-Tech, or some other survival strategy. But we may never know. While the games have given players a detailed view of several American wastelands, the fate of other nations and continents is left for the imagination. It's another one of Fallout's greatest mysteries. Why October 23? Our final mystery for today is a grand one. October 23, 2077 was the fateful date that forever changed the course of human history. It marks the day when the Great War broke out, leading to the complete devastation of the world. Nuclear bombs rained down from the skies, wiping out cities, civilizations, and nearly all of humanity. This event serves as the catalyst for the Fallout series, setting the stage for a world struggling to survive in the aftermath of nuclear fallout. But one question that continues to puzzle fans is, why October 23rd? What happened on that specific day to trigger the end of the world? To understand why October 23rd was the fateful day, it's important to look at the broader context of the world leading up to the Great War. The Fallout universe's pre-war history is marked by escalating tensions between global superpowers, primarily the United States and China, over dwindling resources. The planet was suffering from severe shortages of oil and uranium, resources critical for maintaining both nations' military and economic power. This scarcity led to the Resource Wars, a series of conflicts and skirmishes over control of these vital supplies. By 2077, the situation had deteriorated to a breaking point, with both nations engaged in an arms race, developing increasingly powerful nuclear arsenals as a deterrent against each other. The United States had already taken aggressive actions, such as annexing Canada to secure its oil supplies and deploying troops to the Chinese mainland. Similarly, China had launched its own campaigns to secure resources, including the invasion of Alaska, which led to the prolonged Sino-American War. By late 2077, the world was a powder keg, with tensions at an all-time high, and it seemed that nuclear war was inevitable. Despite the clear signs of impending disaster, the specific reason why October 23rd became the day of the Great War remains a mystery. One theory is that a series of rapid escalations and misunderstandings on that day triggered the launch of nuclear missiles. Some suggest that a false alarm or computer glitch could have caused one side to believe it was under attack, prompting a retaliatory strike that set off a chain reaction. In a world on the edge of war, even a small error or misinterpretation could have catastrophic consequences. Another possibility is that a deliberate decision was made by one of the superpowers to launch a preemptive strike, believing it was the only way to secure victory or survival. Perhaps intelligence reports on October 23rd indicated that the other side was about to strike, leading to a first strike policy being enacted. In a high-stakes environment where both the US and China were poised to launch their nuclear arsenals at a moment's notice, it could make some sense. Some people speculate that corporations like Vault-Tec, which had been preparing for nuclear war by constructing underground vaults, may have had inside knowledge about the timing of the Great War. Could October 23rd have been a planned date for war all along, orchestrated by powerful figures who stood to benefit from the chaos? Well, the Fallout TV show has hinted at the shadowy influence of corporations and secret government projects, suggesting that not everything about the Great War was accidental. There's also the theory that artificial intelligence or automated defense systems played a role in the timing of the Great War. As seen in the games, AI-controlled defense networks and automated missile silos were a significant part of the US military infrastructure. If these systems malfunctioned or were manipulated somehow, they could have launched the missiles independently, bypassing human decision-makers entirely. In a world increasingly reliant on technology, the idea that AI or rogue automated systems could have initiated the end of the world is plausible. However, while all these theories have some merit, the exact reason that makes October 23rd so special remains a mystery. Was there some greater plan at play? Was the Sino-American War reaching a climax? Or was it just any old date, one that had no real meaning? I suppose we will never know. And that wraps up 5 more of Fallout's greatest mysteries. From the odd placement of an old friend, to the immediate aftermath of the Great War, the world of Fallout still has plenty of unanswered questions. But that's all from me today, folks. If you liked the video, be sure to share and subscribe. Join the Discord. Have a good rest of your day. Cheers.
In 2077, the storm of World War had come again. In 2 brief hours, most of the planet was reduced to cinders. And from the ashes of nuclear devastation, a new civilization would struggle to arise.